What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Warthog Gaming Podcast, hosted by me, Hamish.
And me, Oliver Barsby.
How you doing, Ollie?
Oh, it's been a good day today, I'll tell you that.
Yeah?
My God, it has been a good day. I woke up early in the morning at 7 a.m. I was all prepared for today, and then around about 11:30, doorbell rang, went downstairs. Oh, a big box had appeared for me. I opened it up, set some stuff up, and bam, bish bash bosh. Here's my PlayStation 5. It's all set up. I've played a bit of Astro's Playground, a bit of Spider-Man Miles Morales today. Not much, to be honest, but I played enough to know that it is so good. The PlayStation 5. Oh, it's
okay.
It's a good experience. I think it's hard to describe. Everyone's sort of saying it's hard to describe why you think the console is good, and I think it ultimately boils down to the controller. Everyone says, "Oh, the haptic feedback is so good. The adaptive triggers are so good." I'm holding the controller here, and it's just true. It's one of these things where you have to feel it in your hands, and be playing these games and feel the sort of tension drawn from the triggers when you're like doing certain actions, or the vibrations in certain parts of the controller, which are, reacting to certain textures or things on the ground or things moving around you. And then there's all these. It's just such an, I know the Xbox really likes being like, well, we've got the same controller, so it's backwards compatible. But compared to the PS5 controller, the Xbox controller is. I'm holding the Xbox controller now, and I'm like, oh, this is. Yeah, it's not as good. It's not as nice. So it's very good. The controller, Spider-Man Miles Morales, it's snapped me right back into where I was 2017, I think it was.
Yeah, 2017 sounds about right.
Or was it 2018? I think it was 2018 actually. In my first year, just before first year of uni. Yeah, and it's a snap. I've just done the first mission, and I've just about started sort of the open worldy bit, and I'm like, yes, this is what I remember. Give me this again. Inject this into my veins.
Okay, I am very jealous.
Astro's Playground as well, for a free game. Blimey, is very good.
Is it good? Because it looks very not. I don't know if childish is quite the right word. Maybe like family friendly is.
Yeah, it's family friendly. It reminds me a lot of Super Mario Odyssey. Mm-hmm. A bit more simplistic, but I know there are sort of speedrunning things which I'm quite interested in getting into. Sort of like that's where I guess that some of the skill can go. But of course, at the end of the day, it's not supposed to be a game to sell you on the console. It's literally says at the start, this game was made to show off the PS5's controller and the PS5. It's a free game which comes with it. It's just there to sort of celebrate PlayStation. Everything in it is there to celebrate PlayStation. I mean, excuse me, the whole world is based inside a PlayStation 5 console. So it's a very interesting game, and for free, I'm excited to play more of that and more of Spider-Man Miles Morales today and tomorrow and this weekend for the next, 8 years, however long the next console generation lasts.
Probably. Oh well, I guess it's going to be weird because like you've got the Xbox. I don't know. I don't know how long this generation is going to last. I feel like 8 years is always a good estimate.
7-8 years is a nice enough estimate. But yes, it's nice. It took a lot of the stress away when it came. I was like, it's finally here. I'm not worrying about my pre-order getting cancelled. I'm not worrying about anything going wrong because
it's here.
Yeah,
it's only here. So wrong it can go wrong.
It's here because that kind of leads into our first news story on the PlayStation. Which was luckily I ordered my PlayStation from Smith's. Smith's Toy Superstore, a very odd place, but it's where I got my Switch from. And I flat out refused to order it from Game because I don't trust them. And I think I was right in this because a lot of people these past few days or couple of days have been getting some messages from Game, and they've not been good. So it was actually last night or yesterday afternoon when people started receiving emails from Game, telling them they might not receive their consoles today. If you're listening in another day, we're recording this on the day of the PS5's launch.
Yeah, Thursday, November 19th. Took me a second to work out what I was saying.
Yeah, Thursday the 19th, they got the email on Wednesday the 18th, saying they might not receive them today because of last-minute capacity issues from Yodel. They claimed that Yodel had only informed them very recently that they couldn't fulfill every single order, and that's why they won't receive it possibly on Thursday. They might receive on Friday or later. So obviously, many people on Twitter, on every single social media platform, were just, going, were very annoyed, very angry at Game and Yodel, being like, "How dare you? I paid for day one delivery. I paid for all this stuff, and you've gone and done this." And then, interestingly, Yodel actually came back with a response, and so it's not really often you hear from delivery services yourself. So Yodel actually, came out and said on Wednesday night, they came out and went, "Yeah, this is a lie. This is not, we have nothing to do with this." So they actually put out a tweet where they said that Yodel does not directly work with Game. Our client is, I think it's GFS, is how it's like Global Something Services. It's like a sort of middleman, I guess, a fulfillment business who work in partnership with Game, is how the spokesman sort of describes it. And it says, "We have been consistently clear on the order volumes we've been able to carry for them, and are deeply disappointing that Yodel's name has been used incorrectly in an email to customers on the status of orders. There are currently no delays within our network, and any issues regarding the delivery capacity is a matter for GFS and not Yodel." So they've come out and publicly slated Game for throwing him under the bus. Yeah, I think it's not a good look. It's not a good look for Game.
It's not really very good. I can understand Game, obviously. They've promised people these consoles. I think they obviously need to be delivering on them. But, if it's been somewhat taken out of their control by somebody, then it's good. I think I'm kind of with them on saying, like, hey, we're really sorry. It's kind of on these other people, though. Though the fact that they have then incorrectly attributed it to the wrong company. They've said it was Yodel when it seems to be this GFS thing. And it might not even be GFS. It may be Games just sort of making it up. I'd hope they're not. I'd hope there's some truth. But it doesn't paint a good picture.
I don't, because I'm not really sure who's at fault. I don't think Yodel are. I do tend to believe him, but I'm not sure whether it's Game of just been, ill prepared, or they've actually had last minute issues. But luckily, I know some of my flatmates who did order from Game, but it came through Royal Mail. He was lucky in a sense, because it meant that he actually managed to get his PS5 very early this morning. Actually, it came out 7:30 in the morning, which is very early for a post delivery. But
were they awake? Were they awake at 7:30?
I was awake, so I got it. I think they were about awake, because I went and got the parcel, and then they came out of the room and was like, "Oh, is that my PS5?" And it's like, "Yes, it's yours, not mine." Okay, because mine didn't come for 4 hours after, but
that's all right.
It's fine. It's here now, and it's all good.
I'm gonna have to be waiting probably a while for a PS5. I think I'm happy to sort of sit back, relax, wait for stock to come back in. I'm probably gonna miss the first or second wave of stock. It might have to be a little bit later on for me, but that's all good, because I've got so many games I've got to be playing now. I don't have time to get a PS5 and get Spider-Man Miles Morales, because it'll just sit on my shelf, or it will mean that there are other games that then have to go and sit back on my shelf. Destiny 2. Beyond Light, still playing a lot of that, but the sort of the new seasonal content has just launched today, so properly. It's really awesome. You're gonna go and hunt down these really powerful creatures. Been playing a lot of Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory. Now, Ollie, Kingdom Hearts is a weird game franchise. If you've heard me talk about it before.
Yeah, I've heard you, and I think I've heard you talk about that. Isn't that the music one? Like, it's like the rhythm game or something?
Yeah, this is the new game. It came out on Friday, just after last week's episode, and it's a rhythm game. And I've got to tell you, I've not played many rhythm games before, ignoring maybe like Guitar Hero, which I think officially is a rhythm game, but not really for most people. But ignoring Guitar Hero and those mainstream picks, this is my first Japanese rhythm game, and I've got to say, it's pretty bloomin' great. I love it.
You love
The
it?
Kingdom Hearts music is fantastic. It's always been my favorite, like, go-to study music because it gets you right in the mood, you know, and you can really pick what you want out of it. And that's awesome. But then also the controls are so excellent. You know, you are moving along a track that looks a lot like a 3D music score, and you have to hit enemies in time to the music. And it feels very intuitive.
Yeah. It sounds, you know, I do like a few. It sounds a bit like, I remember, is it called Cadence of Hyrule?
Yeah, Cadence of Hyrule.
Yeah, it sounds a bit like that, 'cause I think you have to hit enemies in time with rhythms in that as well. Is it the same music in Kingdom Hearts? Is it new?
Yeah, so basically you're replaying through all of the game worlds, starting back at Kingdom Hearts 1, and in each world that you visit, there's normally 1 or 2 tracks based on that world's music. So there's often the sort of the calm, relaxing track, and then there's the battle music, and they're both really well made. There's also some Disney classic songs. So, for example, A Whole New World from Aladdin. That's not in Kingdom Hearts, but you can unlock it, and then you can play a rhythm game along to that. But it's also not just like hitting enemies as well. I think it plays into the Cadence of Hyrule thing as well. I've not played it much, but I might now actually, because if it's anything like this, then it might be awesome. But you also have to dodge attacks. You get these like special crystals that you have to press a different button for, and you do a cool attack that's also in time to the music. And also then there'll be jumping. Either you've got to jump and fly through a bunch of notes, or you've got to jump and then quickly hit an enemy in time with the music again. So it really makes you think about everything. You know, you play as 3 characters at once, so you've got to be keeping a track on every single person's, you know, who's gonna come up against them next. And it provides pretty much the perfect balance of challenge whilst not being impossibly difficult or too easy. You know, it sits right there in the middle.
Yeah, it's a good balance, and I'm assuming, you know, you want it to be in that middle ground. So yeah, you're enjoying it then. Safe to say. What console are you playing on?
I'm playing on the Xbox One X, so it looks really nice. The only issue I have with it is loading, but not in terms of load times, because I don't have a fancy PS5 like you do. The menus are a bit awkward to navigate. There's a lot of going in and out again. So if you beat what I really wish on sort of the story mode where you're playing basically tracks in the story, I wish that it gives you the option to either play the track again, which often you don't want to do because you've completed all the challenges, you want to get on to the next one, or you can back out completely. I wish it at least let you play the next song. Just because then that would feel a little bit quicker, because otherwise, you know, you have to back out. It plays this fun animation as you leave the world. Then you have to go back into the same world. It has a little thing, and then you got to select the next song. Things. I wish it was just a little bit speedier.
Yeah, it's a bit frustrating, is it?
Yeah, it's really minor, but because you're doing it all the time, like it's pretty much every 3 minutes, or it might even be less, like 2 minutes, because that's how long the tracks are. You feel it, and it starts to build up. And there's also sometimes the menus are a little bit difficult to navigate. There's a lot of going all the way back out to the main menu to then go into something else, because it's not all accessible from just one screen at a time.
Yeah, I think the bit which you particularly said there about the you know, how the game modes or the tracks are so short. You know, that is probably why I think for you as well, it especially feels so annoying, so frustrating, having to see these loading and do this fiddly stuff all the time. Yeah. So hopefully they, you know, as you said, it's a brand new game, came out last week. Might be fixed, might do some patches, might overhaul some stuff.
Yeah, it's got an online component, so I could see that happening. You know, they'll be updating stuff. You can do battles against other players. I've not tried it yet, but I will. And they're also, you know, it is quite fun. There's a much easier selection screen once you've beaten a game. Once you've beaten a track, you can then go and play it on this other screen, and that seems way more easy to navigate. But it's just in the story mode where you're trying to go through and unlock everything, it's a little bit difficult. But you know, the gameplay wise, it's perfect, and yeah, I think it's really, really awesome. But so that's keeping me busy, and that's why I'm glad I don't have Miles Morales, because I mean, I've already got Watch Dogs Legion now on the back burner, which I really want to get back to, but that's just completely out of my mind.
Yeah, I finished it 2 days ago. you can go read my review on the ball if you are that really interested in my full thoughts. But I'll just say, I stick with what I said. The sort of characters style of it, the permadeath, the sort of choosing each person as a new character. That side of the game is so interesting, purely from like a sort of game design perspective and a new way to play perspective as well. The story is, yeah, it's okay. There's not really much to shock you. There's no real like pull to it. There wasn't anything really much which was keeping me invested.
Authoritarian dictatorship is bad.
It's just I mean, if you want me to go over my full opinions, it's one of these classic games where they don't really call the government or sort of any actual political institutions out. They always pin it on a private institution. It's like classic depoliticization. It's like, oh well, the government aren't the bad people here. They're just being manipulated by Albion, this big bad group. And it's like, they don't want to criticize the British government or be seen as doing a critical look at Britain. They want to sort of pin on other people, which is what quite a lot of games do. But I thought there was loads of aspects where it could have explored more. It was a pretty safe story, to be honest. Nothing unexpected. Like, I'm pretty sure I guessed like the end sort of section bits really early on anyways. Some of the missions, the final thing I was saying, the missions are a bit similar, a bit samey, except the ones which are actually in locations like landmarks in London. So like ones inside, Big Ben, inside sort of Parliament. All the ones which are inside are really cool. The other ones are a bit generic samey, but driving around London, very nice.
I really enjoy it. I always enjoy visiting a place that exists that I have been to before, because it was sort of weird at the beginning of the game where I got a bit lost and was like, oh wait, I know where I am, and then was able to sort of navigate through this bit of London that I'd been to quite a few times, and was like, okay, I know where I'm going next. So that was really awesome.
It's good. I'm not sure if I'm going to install it on my PS5. I might, but I think I'm going to play a lot of Miles Morales for a bit, so we'll have to see on that.
Well, we talked a little bit about the PS5. Is there anything else you wanted to add onto it? You've got this new console, but if you've not got much else to say, we can go on to our next news story.
The final thing I'll say is I'm a bit worried about the storage. It'll fill up quite fast. I'm a bit scared of. But apart from that, it's a very good console. If you can get your hands on one, I would highly recommend it in the future. Definitely.
Okay.
It's great.
Cool. PS5, good.
PS5, good. There we are.
So our next news story was another one that you pointed out to me, and that is there was this well-being study that video games are good. Ollie, is this video games are good for you?
This is a video games good study, which quite a lot of times studies on video games are never video games good. They're always video games bad. Video games cause this problem. People. Yeah, video games make you want to kill people. Video games are addictive and make you do worse in your studies, and video games are bad for children. They rot your brains. All this, the classic tropes sort of thrown out there by whether it's politicians, parents. All we all play games here. We've all got the usual suspects is a good way to put it. But interestingly, this study from it was the University of Oxford actually, I think, did a study, and it said that video games actually can be good for your mental health. So it was a study which used actual playtime data. So it sort of got data from, I think it was actually from the games as well. And they sort of linked up a psychological questionnaire with how long people played the games, and then sort of put them together, found correlations and stuff, and they found that when people played these games, they actually felt much better. They felt better in well-being. They felt much happier. And it's interesting because quite a lot of the time the research hasn't really shown that. And before, as I said earlier, it's quite a lot of the time it's bad. And I think it's a good thing because, it's what lots of people in the gaming community have said for a while. No, these games are good for my mental health. It's nice to go and play these games and distract myself from stuff for a while. It's good. But, and there's a big caveat here. Because I just sent you this article, Hamish. Have you seen the games they focused on?
No, I haven't. I've got a few other things up on my things. So
okay. So this study used two games, which is a bit iffy in
Bit
itself
low.
in the first place. The games were Animal Crossing and
Okay.
EA's Plant vs Zombies Battle for Neighborville. Um, that was it. These were the two games used. And I just saw that
Okay.
I saw this thing and I saw the headlines like, yes, this is so cool, this is good. And then I saw they used the data from two games, one of them which is like widely regarded as the most wholesome game of all time. You know, say like as in was the game which essentially saved so many people from lockdown or going stir crazy during lockdown. And then a shooter based on Plants vs Zombies, which is like
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe that means that they could
yeah,
open up to a much wider audience of players.
it's
You know,
it's
you want a
yeah.
game that you can't pick like Call of Duty because then that means you can only have 18-year-olds and older, really.
I think everyone who did this study was over 18, just
Oh, well, you might
from
have to
data,
be anyway. Yeah, that's
yeah,
fair.
data and study wise stuff. And it just said to me, it's like this is a good study. I'm glad it shows this. But one of the main criticisms of all these studies against video games is that the data they use is always really like specific or out of context, or there's always lots of stuff which you don't realize. And I'm thinking for this one, you need to have in the most popular games, put in Fortnite, put in Minecraft, put in shooters, do it by genre or something like that. Because obviously some people do get really stressed out at games, but some people also find them relaxing and cathartic. People might think, oh, I
Yeah.
play Call of Duty and it really helps me. But I think, if it needed to be, to me, I don't really hold this report in much weight purely because of the research sort of used was only on these two games. And I'm like, if you put in a Call of Duty Warzone or a Fortnite or a FIFA, these games where it's a bit more competitive, more just as popular as well, of course, millions of people play these games, much more than to play Plants vs Zombies, I will add as well. I don't think I've ever played that game. I think I can't even remember really hearing about it. I think I've heard of it once.
I've heard of it. It's meant
Yeah,
to be a decent shooter, I think. The Plants vs. Zombie shooters are meant to be
yeah.
surprisingly fun, I
You
believe.
know, it's just one of those things. I'm like, you know, it's all well
Yeah.
and good, but
No, I'm
maybe
with you
choose a
there.
wider sample.
Because, obviously scientific study and video games fall right into sort of the niche of my two sort of sectors of interest, and it's always really intrigued me, on the topic of video game studies. So many of them in the past, particularly the ones that have been negative, have been really, really biased. I did a look into them all, or not quite all of them, a look into lots of these studies, and you find they either hyper focus on one or two specific kind of games, and they really try and push for a certain narrative. Sometimes they even go the really bad thing of throwing out results that don't fit with what they wanted to propose. But then when you look at studies that do open up into way more games, I think probably the best study that really goes into that is it looks into whether video games make you more aggressive, because you technically can't. Anyone that says video games are proven to make you more violent is not true, because there is no scientific study that can prove that video games make you more violent, because it is impossible to test for violence. Because the way you would do it is you would have to put a knife in front of somebody and see if they are more likely to stab somebody after playing a video game versus before, and whoever's getting stabbed is not probably going to want to get stabbed. So
No, it's one of those. It's one of
always
those odd
aggressive.
things. Video games. I mean, I remember doing video games and aggression in my psychology A level, and I was like, this is just not true. The one thing I agreed with is people say it's cathartic, which is, I think a good explanation. And there's all sorts of other factors and like psychological factors and all this stuff. And it's one of those things where I've been, it's an odd sort of research field. I've been doing my dissertation on video games. I'm doing it on video games and sort of links to US national security in sort of the sort of how they reproduce these sort of ideas of war and terrorism, all this stuff, all that fun stuff. And one really interesting thing I found from doing one reading is that there was a point which stuck out to me. Video games, despite being one of the most popular sort of media sort of fields in terms of popular culture and influence and economic, there's video games make billions each year. It has very little studies. There's big film studies, big TV studies, huge music studies. All these cultural things have massive fields dedicated to them. There's not really much on video games. It's
Yeah, I
growing,
think
but
it's
slowly.
growing, yeah. Because I think it's important to understand games in context, and I think it's important to look into things, because having it all there is important. You were talking about how they've only played 2 games. In one of the better studies in terms of how it was produced, they looked at a wide variety of games and try and categorize, and also try to look at what people were playing and categorize them into specific categories, because they wanted to see, they were testing for, video games, but they realized their difference. They looked at sort of violent games and non-violent games, but then separately put those down into competitive and non-competitive. So, a game where it's like story focused but hyper violent, maybe like Dead Island, that would go into one category. But another game which is non-competitive, non-violent, Animal Crossing, another category. And you look at how those 4 categories of games affect things. And again, it's saying that because it's so different, the games that are non-violent, non-competitive, they do lower your aggression. They do seem to give you this sort of make you feel good, boost your morale and all those kinds of things. Whereas even the aggressive games and also the competitive games, they do up your aggression. Actually, being competitive was the main thing. But they also said, in the moment, they make you aggressive, but it's they might hype you up a lot and they might get you going. But that's very short term, much like someone playing football or really like a sport. That's getting your blood pumping, but then when you're done, it's catharsis. You've let out all of that emotion, and then you can relax again. So it's even then thinking like that. Don't just check somebody 5 minutes after they've played a game. Go back to them after an hour. Go back to them maybe even a little bit longer and see, are they feeling better about themselves now because they've managed to get out all of that aggression and they've managed to get all out of that competitive nature that they wanted to feed. And it shows that video games do seem to have this good thing. So on the one hand, study great for maybe supporting what we want to see, but also we need to make sure that these studies can be backed up, because you can't just throw out studies you don't like because they don't have all the evidence there. You need to do that for the studies you do like, because then you just end up getting very, very biased and we end up becoming what we dislike.
Yeah, it's one of the, hopefully it's a stepping stone to further studies. I think hopefully the team at Oxford University will not just stop here and be like, right, that's video game solved, let's move on to the next thing. I hope they won't. I think it's good that they've published this, and I think it made actual headlines and stuff. So there's a long way to go, and I think we're getting there. We're getting there.
Well, yes. Talking about getting there with video games, we are going to try something new with the Warthog Gaming Podcast. We're going to be not going to do something new. We're going to be doing predictions for the Gaming Awards. Predictions, something we've done, but I am going to.
Wrong. We're often very wrong.
We're going to try and do this as a stream. We about this podcast over on Twitch, and I'm going to try and share my screen. Hopefully, not share any personal info. I think Awards. There we go. It's been a big one. I feel like we are going to have to call it. Thank you so much for everybody who was listening along on Twitch. Thank you everybody who was watching later on YouTube. There's no actual video of us talking, it's just some lovely pictures of us this week. My internet's been letting up too much, so I didn't test it with multiple video streams trying to run through my laptop. It's already screaming at me. You've probably heard the entire time of whirring of fans.
You'll get to see a nice picture of me with my PlayStation 5 controller.
Yeah, mine's of me looking very intensely even at my Nintendo Switch. If you're listening on podcast services, then you didn't notice any difference, hopefully. And we thank you so much for listening wherever you are. Make a like, subscribe, a comment, a rating, whatever is appropriate for your platform. Let us know. And yeah, that's all we've got to say. I hope you've liked our predictions. Please let us know what yours are. We'll be putting out images of some of our predictions later on. We'll probably also do another Game of the Year talk, just because as much as it's great to look at these 5 games, I might want to talk about other games that have meant something to us. Maybe it doesn't have to decide whether the game was one. We can talk about our favourites for 2020, have a whole episode dedicated to it. Until then, it is going to be a goodbye from me.
It's bye from me.
Bye.
Bye.